There's an analogy that sometimes has been used of the idea that if somebody is at risk, it's the idea that they might be in a long tunnel, with the idea of suicide being at the end. And you can't take away that option necessarily, but what we can do maybe is open some of the doors on the side of that tunnel.
It is a really common perception of suicide that it's a cowardly act. I used to think, and I know for sure that I've used the comment before, that's just giving up. That's just giving up. The way that I look at it now is that it was a fight that they just weren't able to win with themselves.
Welcome to Distress Center's training. If for any reason during training you feel like triggered by the material, feel free to step out of the room for a little while and come back in.
You may not make it through the training, and that's part of what training is about. So we're looking for those who have that ability to convey a certain tone with their voice, so a warmth, but also those who have a sense of conveying empathy. And these are vulnerable people that we're working with. And so, it's we really need to be sure that it's a right fit.
Where do people find this number? Like, where is it posted?
In a lot of places,
Okay.
it is actually...
The subway. The subway, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just curious if it works.
Oh, really?
The bridge, the Dom's out.
Right, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So we respond to over 100,000 calls a year. We will respond to those who might be in crisis, who are thinking of suicide, expressing suicidal ideation, or who may be attempting suicide. We will also talk to a lot of people who are isolated and lonely.
Distress Center. Hi. I'm pretty good. What's going on with you? A lot of different people call into the Distress Center. We have a lot of regular people. By regular, I mean people who call sometimes daily because it's their only connection to the outside world. You have a lovely day. Okay, bye-bye. Okay, so that was literally the same woman I talked to before. So I have not had a caller today yet that wasn't a regular. And then we have people who are in true crisis who call, who are suicidal, who are they're on the precipice of a very difficult situation. Would it be fair to say you do want to live if things get better? Well, I think you're a lot stronger than you realize, because you've been through a tremendous amount. My very best friend for about 30 years took his life by suicide in 2011. It wasn't a surprise to me, which it often is, a blind side for people. I anticipated it because it was something that he had talked about and was pretty clear on for a long time. A couple of things that are pretty prevalent with someone who is contemplating taking their life is the belief that the pain they are experiencing is not going to get better. I look at it much differently now than I did when it happened because I know a lot more about it now, and sometimes I think, could I have helped him with what I know now? Probably not.
When you have been somebody that your brain runs a little deep and you've been able to sort of have an experience with maybe teetering on those thoughts, or even having a full-blown experience where you've been in a spot where you've been suicidal, you can relate to it, understand. It doesn't freak you out as much because you understand kind of the process that it can take to get somebody to get there.
Hello.
Hey, babe.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
You know the guy at work that passed away?
Yeah. Did you hear any more?
His funeral's tomorrow,
Yeah.
and it's been affecting everybody at work.
My aunt she's like my mom. I call her my mom. I didn't really have anybody in my immediate circle other than my aunt that knew what it felt like to experience such intense psychological distress.
And then to find out that it was by suicide. Like, it's the strangest feeling. You know, you just see people and you say hi and you walk by and
Of course.
you just never know. And then to just come in one day and to hear, oh, he passed away.
But that's why the work at the distress center is so important. It's hard because not a lot of people probably feel like they want to pick up that phone and even talk about it regardless.
Well, then, like I said, I don't know how you can jump right into a situation like that. That's pretty courageous. I don't know. I think a lot of people are like me in that it's really too heavy a topic to go near. But as depressed as I've been, I certainly have never gotten to that point.
Hello, Distress Center. Hi there. I'm doing well. How are you?
I think one of the most challenging calls for me would be when someone says that there's been no change in how they're feeling, or that they just don't know if it's going to be okay.
Hello, Distress Center. You're pretty bad. Do you want to tell me what's going on? You're having a panic. I don't know what they're going to give you, but they're on their way to you. Are you going to hold on with me? Okay. I know you feel scared. It's a very scary feeling when you're having a panic attack. You're not wasting our time. You need help, and we are here to help you. Do you know what helps me when I have my panic attacks? Breathing helps me. For me, it's the sweaty palms, the heart racing, the nauseous feeling in my stomach. You feel like you're stuck in inertia. It's paralyzing. When I had my panic attack, it was really hard for me to see the light at the end of the tunnel. As hard as it was, I reached out. Talking about it to me was extremely helpful because I was able to voice and take everything that I was feeling inside and name it, action it. It continuously is a work in progress.
If you're asking somebody about their suicidality, the greatest fear might be, what are you going to get back from them? What if they say yes? Then what do you do?
So we had someone who called us. She was very, very high risk of suicide. However, it wasn't an imminent risk situation. She was feeling overwhelmed with thoughts of suicide. The responder panicked, called 911. 911 dispatched paramedics. That person dispatched police. The person was apprehended under the Mental Health Act, taken to hospital, sat in an ER for several hours. Finally, a resident in psychiatry saw the person for about 5 to 10 minutes, and they were sent home. The person actually called us the next day, and they were not very happy. It's important to be able to stay calm and stay focused and have that conversation. And so what we're really talking about is having emotional fortitude yourself, so that you're learning to be comfortable being uncomfortable and being in the presence of emotional pain and not feeling the urge to fix or solve or rescue. And we use a model that was developed in the United States. It's the work of Thomas Joyner. If anyone's heard of Thomas Joyner, he basically is the creator of the interpersonal theory of suicide.
Lethally suicidal people have two painful states of mind coexisting. One is called perceived burdensomeness. It's a misperception, I should rush to add, but the suicidal person doesn't know that. That's a key complexity. But it's the misperception that they're a burden and that therefore their death will be a net benefit to everyone. The calculation is along the lines of my death will be worth more than my life. In addition to that, they feel a second state of mind, and we've named that thwarted belongingness, but it's just a long way of saying loneliness or feeling socially disconnected. Suicidal people are mistaken about their inherent value and inherent dignity. And the mental disorders, I think, that spur much of this lead them to misperceive it. It's not really their fault in a sense. They're not doing it because it's a good thing to do or that they like it or anything like that. It's that these conditions that they're suffering from are leading them astray. Pain can get that bad. It can get that bad, but that doesn't mean you have to act on it, especially when there are remedies available sooner or later.
It's not that the person wants to end their life, but they want to stop the pain that they're experiencing. How can we help them see that there are other ways to lessen the pain?
I've known that something's been off since I was a little girl. It's really hard to make sense of what's going on in your own brain. And especially when you're a little bit younger, you have to look to other people to kind of help you make sense of that. So I was told for a long time that I had anxiety, and I do, and I knew that was that piece that I was sort of fighting. As I got older, the anxiety just got worse and worse and worse. There were a lot of times where I left a healthcare professional's office telling them in tears, I'm not okay, I know something's wrong, and I know I'm not okay. It got to a point where you wake up and you're immediately thinking about how much you don't want to be awake and you don't want to start your day. And I am somebody that I want to figure it out. I want to be here. I want to be a functioning adult and a functioning member of society. You feel like a constant burden. I've lost friends because they don't understand, why is Sophia always in such a crappy mood, or why is she's always got something going on, or she's always so intense, because it's so intense and my brain was so intense. I knew that I didn't find any enjoyment in the things that I was doing. I just knew that I had to get through them, and it was an awful way to live. And I remember my breaking point was the end of the semester, and I had told myself, it's school that it's the reason why everything's so heavy right now. So just get to the end of it and things are going to feel lighter in the summer. And then I got to summer and I had significantly less to worry about. And I still had that pressing feeling, like an elephant stepping on my chest as soon as my eyes open in the morning. This voice screaming in your head that you're not okay, you're not okay, you're not okay, every single moment. And that's when I finally really kind of cut off, and I started to get into a period of really asking myself questions like, what's the point? And why am I here then? Ideas would pop into my head about how I could do it. And I definitely thought about stockpiling my pills, but I wasn't sure if that would do it. So I wanted a situation that I could keep in my brain that I knew it would be like game over, and it would be successful, and I wouldn't have a situation where I would attempt and then be sent to the hospital. So I thought about rope and hanging myself from my shower, and wow, yeah. So, yeah. It's embarrassing. It's still embarrassing. It's so embarrassing. So, see? And it doesn't need to be embarrassing, because it doesn't need to be embarrassing, period.
My son had 5 different diagnoses, but I feel the factor was shame and humiliation. We watched the shame devour him. It wasn't a matter of if he was going to take his life, it was just a matter of when. The note was helpful. I don't know what families do without a note. I mean, I talk to families about it, and they struggle with that.
It's been 9 years for me as well. And it was my dad who passed away. And it's funny because it's a really different experience from yours. For me, it was like, and for most people who were close to him, it was like the biggest shock of our lives. Didn't see it coming at all.
One of the most difficult things that I've encountered with survivors of suicide loss is when they don't have an explanation for what happened. You know, they're struggling with, I don't get this. It happened out of the blue. No signs of mental health issues.
I lost both my sons to suicide, 7.5 years apart. So I guess I spent 12 years living in fear. I literally punished myself 24/7, questioning myself. Oh my God, do I feel relief? I feel relief. How can I feel relief? Yeah. So all those silly questions, but I did feel relief. I don't know how many more years I could have gone on like that.
I want it to be normal for us to say, my dad died by suicide, and for people to not squirm up. Because if it was cancer, if it was a heart attack, if it was anything else, it would be okay to talk about. I've had a lot of people say afterwards, they were like, oh, I wanted to reach out to you and I didn't. And I was like, if you did, that would have been amazing. But people just don't know what to do.
The hope for me is that they feel connected, that they feel able to express what they need to. I'm very careful about saying that I hope they're better than they were when they came in, because I'm not sure that that's fair. However, that being said, most people say they are. And it's still profound. I mean, I'm going to be honest about that. If I still read my sister's journal, it's painful. It hurts, I cry sometimes, and this is a long time for me. My sister had a hard life. She struggled with addictions and mental health issues. Jewish New Year's one year, I was going with my mom somewhere, and I had an inclination that something was wrong with her. And it wouldn't something I normally would have done, but I said that we should go and check on her. I walked in and found her. My immediate instinct was not to let my mom in and see her. Now, I would never have done differently. I know that many people say they want to see the person. When you think about the image you have of somebody, it's not an ideal last image to have. I mean, the reality is that there are pieces of it that are always with you. She had written a journal, and through parts of her life. And when you read this journal, you really see the depths of her pain. It's got to be hard. What would life mean if it wasn't hard? What would those relationships mean to us? Suicide is insidious. It's unrelenting. A lot of people are dying. Four 4,000 people roughly in Canada every year die by suicide. Doing nothing is not an option.
Some volunteers come in and say, I don't want to ask about suicide because I don't want to put that idea in somebody's head. The truth is that we can't put that idea in somebody's head. How we actually do an assessment with somebody is through conversation. There are some little questions that we might ask along the way, but all of the things that you've been learning throughout training about validation and building rapport and normalizing experiences for people are going to be present even in a call where suicide is brought up. We're not going to start every single call just asking every person if they're thinking of suicide or thinking of ending their life. Those feelings of hopelessness and helplessness, sometimes talking about feeling like a burden, saying, the people in my life would be better off without me. Once we start hearing those comments and it becomes apparent that somebody's in that place of despair and having those thoughts, we actually ask the question very bluntly.
So the first question, are you thinking about suicide? The next question you want to check in with is to see, how long have you been thinking about suicide? Because the length of time that someone's thinking about it can change the risk level from low into medium. The third question we want to ask now is, do you have a plan for how you'd like to take your life? So if someone says, yes, I have a plan, I think I want to overdose on my medications, then we want to get a little bit more detail in that question. So we want to ask, what medications and where are they in relation to you?
The number of people who have suicidal ideas in the United States is probably in the millions. If ideation always translated into suicidal action, the rates of suicide would be astronomical. It sounds so strange to say, but the mechanics of bringing about death, the literal process of enacting one's death, I think everyone's deeply afraid of that, as they should be. On the left side of the model, the emphasis is on psychological pain, specific states of psychological pain, namely perceived burdensomeness and thwarted belongingness. Those lead to suicidal ideation. Just thinking, not anything else, just thinking. Who can do it? And the answer of the model is people who, in one way or another, have developed an unusual capacity to withstand pain and fear of death, and to look death in the face and not blink, not back off. Most people will, even suicidal people. Being a law enforcement officer or a firefighter or a soldier Many other, walks of life need that quality, and in that context, it's really admirable. It could even be heroic. What I'm suggesting is that when you put in these other variables of things like perceived burdensomeness and thwarted belongingness, it changes that capacity into something that can be very dangerous and lethal and sad.
You ready? Hello, Distress Center. Hi. Yeah, it's Candace. I'm good. How are you?
It makes it easier having my own experiences to reflect on, because I think I would be maybe terrified to hear some of the emotions and that they're expressing if I didn't know what it felt like to experience those emotions myself.
Does she have like a plan or like means? Does she say what her plan would be?
But in a situation where it is possibly life or death, I think that that's going to be a little terrifying.
Yeah, like she might not necessarily actually attempt, but the fact that she's feeling this way and saying it and stuff like that means that there's a lot going on for her too right now, and that she's going through a tough time.
Hello, Distress Center. Okay, so just to make sure we're on the same page here. So like this is your son that you're concerned about? And how old is he? 18? Okay. And where is he now? Sorry, can you say again? And then just 10 minutes ago, he went running down the road? And has he been talking about wanting to kill himself for a long time, or is this something that just came up? For how long? And you said he's 18 years old? Okay. Is he in high school now, or just at any school? Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned saying he wanted to kill himself. Yeah. Yeah. Has he mentioned has he made a plan or anything to do that? Okay. Rather than calling 911, I can refer you to a mobile crisis unit. They can assist on site, but they're not, it's not a 911 call, right? Or another thing you can also do is you can call police services, but you can call the non-911 emergency line. Have you ever heard of that? While he does have to make that decision to get help on his own, he has to be willing to do it, there are things you can do in the meantime that can help him to make that decision to reach out. And you may be doing some of these already, but it's just a case of being open to helping him, yet not overbearing with the help that you're offering. You're welcome. All right. All the best. Thanks.
Wow, that was an intense call.
Yeah, there's the intense call.
Sorry for all the questions. It's hard because I'm so curious.
Well, no, it's fine. When she said that he went running off, I'm like...
Without shoes or something.
Without shoes, yeah. Because it sounded like, who knows, maybe he's not going to come back or something, and I've had experience with that, and it didn't turn out ideally. Me and my brother have been close since we were kids. Best friends, basically. It was on winter break during his first year back from university that he had what they were calling a psychotic break. He ended up just running out of the house at one point. My dad had to call 911 because we didn't know what else to do. Police apprehended him, so they actually pushed him up against a police car and cuffed him. He was taken to the hospital involuntarily, which is never ideal. He really resented that happened. we regret that, both me, my dad, my mom, but we didn't know what else to do at the time.
They'd take the lead in the division, actually, if they won this game.
That's true, yeah.
What's the... No,
Ravens
there's
are
no one else
Ravens
in the
are
division.
two.
And everyone else, I think...
Steelers.
Bengals haven't won, I don't think. Steelers haven't won.
Bengals.
These guys lost. Who did the Ravens? The Chiefs.
Now it's been, I think, 3 years that he's been on the medication, and they've helped to keep him very stable, and he's been great with his situation. He's adapted very well. He's been very open with it too, and he's been open with other people who have gone through mental health issues. Home stretch for you too, the final year. How's that feel?
It's a long journey that finally, the finish line's finally near, which is gonna be big, just because there were times when it didn't look like it was something that was gonna be attainable. So
I don't know if he'd ever had suicidal thoughts, but the idea of feeling hopeless and helpless was definitely there. What pretty much anyone who's considering suicide has in common is they feel isolated and or helpless in that situation. Like, they may know a lot of people and they may see and talk to people every day, but they don't feel like they're really connecting with people. They don't feel like people really get them. I think a lot of people in general they just want to give advice. They tell them what to do. Maybe they've been in that situation and they know something that worked for them. But ultimately, more often than not, it's more helpful to just listen and understand and restate what they're saying so that they know they're understood and someone understands their situation, and maybe not even give advice at all if they're not asking for it. Being a true active listener for someone and being available to do that is the biggest thing that we can do in terms of supporting people who are considering suicide.
All right, we're live. Hello, Distress Centers. Hi, how are you today? I'm sorry to hear that. I don't think so. I'm Sophia. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. Do you want to tell me a little bit about what you're thinking? Do you mind me asking you, do you have the rope with you now? Where is it exactly? And do you feel safe keeping it there while we talk? Okay. Yeah, like you just feel very, it's a hard way to feel, so alone and isolated like that. It's, it can really take a toll on you. And I think that you've done incredible up until now, because to join, a support group, to get a psychiatrist, to, be working through the challenges of understanding, your bipolar disorder and being schizophrenic, like that's a lot to navigate. I do think that that's incredible that you've managed to come this far. And I'm glad that you called today, and I'm glad that we're chatting. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope we chat soon. Oh my God, I don't feel well. I had no idea what to say. Like, at all. I literally had no idea what to say. She just had so many bad things. I had no idea what to focus on. Like, she had no family, no friends, like, no nothing. And she was just talking about how alone she was. I just don't know what you say to somebody who's really alone. Yeah. Oh my God, I can't even believe I'm having this reaction.
I never was a big believer that there was a higher power. It's not that I was an atheist, but I started praying. And if you ask me now, is there a God? Of course there is a God, and He's a good God, and He's the one that brought me through this. He took those 2 boys for me for a reason. And I think that's why I got off the couch. Not for me, but for him. It was like, okay, you left me here. I'm the last one standing. You must have had a good reason. So I got to get up and I got to find out what it is I'm supposed to do. I used to call Zach a leftover flower child. He would have fit in at Woodstock perfectly. You know, he loved to smoke his pot. He was laid back. Nothing bothered him. Josh, on the other hand, was much more like his father. I always said to everybody, Zach is my favorite. I don't know about that kid, Josh. It was a Monday, and I was at work, and I just had this horrible, horrible feeling. I went home. I remember lying down on my bed, not taking off my coat, because it was January, not taking off my coat, still holding my purse and grabbing the phone. And I literally, for 6.5 hours, I remember holding the phone because I knew I was going to get a phone call. And sure enough, I did. And my ex-husband was crying, and he said, "We lost a son." And I had to say, which one? Because they were both suicidal. So Josh came to live with me at that point. And he was a mess when he got off the plane. He was so high. And I basically let him get settled in that night. And the next morning, I read him the riot act. And I went, you know what? You're going cold turkey off of whatever you are taking. He went, really? I can't do it. And I said, well, you're going to do it. I'm not going to work, and I'm going to stay with you. And I did. I stayed with him for about 3-4 days. You know, he went through the whole withdrawal thing. But at the end of the 4 days, he was fine. I don't even think it was 4 days. And he literally said, well, if I can kick cocaine, like, you know, there must be something in me, you know, that still sort of wants to go on. And I think that was a turning point for him. I called Alex and I said, I'm hoping that I can convince him to see you. Alex said to me, okay, I'll meet with him. And he did. He met with Josh for 8 weeks, just like the program worked. For an hour, 2 hours, they would do lunch. Josh was very fond of Alex, and Alex was fond of Josh.
Yeah, so this is my new house. This is the living room. It's pretty big. TV's gonna go there. New, yeah. Here's my trailer.
He started a junk removal business. So I set up the office in the basement, and he did the whole basement up for me, and it was beautiful.
And this is the door that my mom comes through, so I had some privacy in my life.
I was his office manager, and he was working and making good money, to the point where he actually had a crew.
I'm Josh, and I'm from Remove My Junk, clearing your space so you don't have to. We do what the other guys won't do. Yeah, I'm Josh, proud owner of Remove My Junk, clearing your space so you don't have to. We do what the other guys won't do.
I just figured that life would go on forever like that. I knew I was in huge trouble. Josh's birthday was August the 30th. He refused to blow out the candles on the cake. He wouldn't take the card from me. He wouldn't take the gift. At that point, I said, okay, that's it. And I talked to his girlfriend and I said, you've got to clean up your act because we are now on suicide watch. We were pretty much on suicide watch that whole summer. He couldn't go to the washroom without either me or her being outside of the washroom because there's mirrors, there's razors. She's in the shower. I'm out running errands. He's got his window of opportunity. He figures he's got 20 minutes.
Oh, hey, kitty. You want to come in? Yeah?
I get home and I notice that all the lights in the basement are on, and it's my unit, and I never would leave all the lights on. And as I'm turning out the light in the office and I look in the laundry room, there's this thing hanging from a pipe.
I show you the laundry room. It's pretty big. Actually, it's massive.
911 was excellent. We're talking not even 5 minutes, and they were at my house. We could hear them in there. They were in there for about 10, 15 minutes, and then they came out and they said, we're sorry, but we can't bring him back. Your son is gone. And he was gone. And he set us up. And I don't know how else to say it, but he set us up because I said to Julie, why were you in the shower? Like, you knew, even though he tried to convince us that he was safe and we were not to worry, I don't understand why you would take the shower, knowing I'm out. And she said, but that's the thing, Sandi. I didn't know you were out. I went, what? She said, he told me that you had decided not to run your errands and he was going downstairs to talk to you. I will tell them my story only when it serves them, because it's not about me. Who cares if I've lost 2, 10, or 12? They've lost one person, and the whole focus has to be on them. I bring it up for a reason, because they are going downhill. They're spiraling. They don't get it. Of course they're not going to get it. It's too soon, but they're losing hope. And that's just not going to happen on my watch, because I know eventually there is hope.
I thought I was doing a little bit better than I was. My dog, Henry, who you've all got to see, he passed away. He went in for a routine procedure. And he came home with me, and the next morning in my apartment, he choked. It was a traumatic experience, and it was a traumatic week. I found myself being in really familiar places again. I recently stopped volunteering at the distress center, and that was a really difficult decision for me to make. I don't think I understood how much consistency you needed with yourself to be able to do that kind of work. I want to volunteer and be at the distress center when I have that consistency to be able to give them. Nothing's safe, honestly. Nothing is safe, and at any moment, anything, can happen or be taken from you, or can happen to you or to someone that you love. And I obviously wasn't as prepared for it as I thought I was.
It was like within a week's time when it went from, I don't think it's really going to be that serious, to, oh my God, the world is closing down. I mean, it happened relatively quickly. Suicide is very much about hopelessness. And when something like this happens, I think those feelings just intensify.
Hopelessness, the sadness. The space that they're in is just getting smaller and smaller, and smaller. A lot of the calls that I've been getting is that reaching out to connect, in the sense of, I'm feeling lonely and I am afraid to go outside and I don't know how to adapt to this. Being present and letting them know that they're not in this alone and the uncertainty is real.
Numbers sometimes take a while to get there. We need to assume that people are hurting more than they used to. I think we need to make the assumption that people are feeling more isolated and more alone. If somebody is really depressed, there are families that will make the effort to come into them, and now that doesn't happen. We need to do what we can to fill that gap.
Hello, Distress Center. Yep, I can hear you. I have talked to some people who are in some tough situations. They're depressed or they're considering suicide. It's definitely it's a struggle. Like even for me, like I think I'm doing fairly well, but there've been a lot of days that have been tougher. It's okay to admit that the depression has held you back. It's a difficult time for everyone, and just getting by is fine.
I had to take my cat to the vet yesterday. I thought he was going to die on the spot. I'm hyper vigilant with Bear. Bear was Josh's cat. And he's 13 and I need him to live forever. I figure I'm only going to be around for another decade. This time is a waste for me. I could be out there living my life and they're holding me from it. I haven't filled my tank of gas since March 15th because I don't get to go anywhere.
I find that it's been easier the last couple of weeks since the warm weather has come out. You can get out and ride your bike and, just feel more part of the world when you're outside. When you're inside, it's very hard. Imagine in 1918 being in a pandemic. We didn't have cell phones where we could talk, FaceTime.
I try to call home every day. It's usually in the evenings, just to check in. Hi, Mom. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
How is your day so far?
Day has been great. Just kind of relaxing. Getting a lot of things done that I was supposed to do.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You're looking pretty. How was your weekend?
My mom's a big hugger. To physical distance from your own child, that was not easy for her to digest.
Your brother is good, your dad is good, your doggy is good.
Say hi to them for me. One of the biggest things I have noticed is that every morning I was waking up with anxiety. That was really hard because it's the adjustment of working in uncertainty.
I think I am perhaps well equipped to handle things because of the kind of person I am. All the things that I really love to do are the things that are affected by this. You really want that to come back, but I don't know how soon. I don't know what it'll look like. I'm okay on my own. I've spent a lot of time there.
Everybody dies. I'm not afraid of death. And after you lose someone to suicide or homicide, you're not afraid of death either. If we live our lives in the face of death every single day, we're braver, we're stronger, we're more willing to be spontaneous. Plus, you don't get paranoid like everybody else out there. They're all
paranoid that they're going to get coronavirus.
Hi, is this Tara? Can you tell me when your loss was?
About 3 months ago.
3 months, okay. And have you been getting any support since then?
No.
No, okay. Suicide, of course, continues. It increases when something like this happens. The email you said that it was your daughter who had died. I won't deny that it's been hard at times. The social connections that I typically have are absent right now. The pandemic is a perfect storm, and I worry for people struggling with mental health, and I worry about people who are at risk. So much of trauma and anxiety is connected to not knowing what the future is going to hold.
This year, I'm afraid we're going to have 50,000 suicide deaths in the U.S. for the first time ever. Way too high. People worried about the economy, their jobs, their friends, being isolated from their friends, more drinking in the U.S., more gun sales, all that. September 11th was, of course, many things, but, it was a tragedy, a crisis. Suicide rate should have gone up on September 11th because there was angst and worry, panic. But there was also a palpable feeling of togetherness, of coming together at a time of crisis. I'm just hopeful that a lot of this distress that is happening doesn't necessarily get translated into suicidal behavior or death, because there are protective factors too.
I'm going to be honest, I'm trying not to think too far ahead. And that is like my tactic right now. I've had days where I'm feeling quite panicked about how long this is going to be and how I'm going to keep myself busy. Somebody from school said this to me, an advisor. She said, it's not going to feel the same way that it felt before. Things are different now, and you just have to be kind to yourself through the adjustment. It's really unnatural. Your bed is 5 feet away from your workstation. It's not meant to work for everybody. So it's been hard for me. This much time alone doesn't really matter who you are. It's going to force you to kind of face difficult thoughts and emotions. For a long time, I really liked to resist or freeze, and that was what I knew as a reaction. But I realized that you can have another reaction, and that can just be to open yourself up to everything you're feeling. My goal is to finish school and volunteer with the Distress Center when I'm done. I know that I want that experience. I know that I want to learn from the people that I was learning from. But as for when, I'm not putting any sort of pressure on myself in terms of time.